Hey, what's up guys? My name is Michael Westbrook. Thanks for checking out this video. Today we are going to be talking about recording acoustic guitars. I've been recording acoustics a lot here in my home studio lately, and so I wanted to give you guys a rundown of how I'm doing that, what I'm looking for and listening for as I'm getting my sounds. I will cover some basics, but then also a little more advanced ideas and things that I think about when I'm trying to get the tone that I'm going for. While I'm hitting on a lot of basics as well as more advanced information, I'm going to assume that you have an audio interface and a DAW, you know how to operate those, you know how to get good gain levels. I'm not going to go into that. We're really just focusing on the microphones, the placement of those microphones on the guitars, pickup patterns, and just thoughts around all that stuff and how they all come together to make the overall sound. All right, let's get into it. All right, so we're all hooked up. I've got a couple of mics set up, but the mic that I wanted to start out with is a Shure SM57. Now, I know that this is probably not the mic that most people think of when they think of recording acoustic, but one reason why I wanted to start with it is it's a great Swiss Army mic that most people or a lot of guitar players at least have laying around, and that it can be used to get great acoustic sounds, especially when you're recording acoustic guitar for like a full mix, for a band mix. Using an SM57 on an acoustic can be just the trick. So I think it's definitely something you should try if you haven't tried it. I also wanted to start out with a 57 just because a lot of people think that they need a lot of expensive gear. They need a really nice condenser mic, or they just have to go out and buy all of this gear to get great sounds. And I just wanted to show you guys that that's not necessarily the case, and that you might be able to use gear that you already have and get some great sounds. Right now I've got the 57 hooked up, just running through my Focusrite interface. Nothing fancy, no EQ, no compression. And I want to talk to you guys about how I would set this mic up. Now, these principles apply really to any mic, and I want to show you guys how I do this on my own. I don't have anybody helping me do this, and so this is kind of the way that I've figured out how to get the best sounds and get it set up without anybody else helping me set it up or get sounds dialed in and all of that. Okay, so I've got my headphones on, or I'm about to put them on, and I want to show you guys kind of how I find the placement of the microphone on the guitar. Now, generally speaking, when you're setting up a mic on an acoustic, we're kind of focused in this area right here where the neck meets the body. Some people say that we want to aim the mic at the 12th fret. I've also heard other people talk about pointing it at this bow right here, either the upper or the lower one. But generally speaking, what I always think about when I'm doing this is I'm thinking about, treble versus bass, or body versus top end. So as we get closer to the sound hole, we're going to get more body, we're going to get more low end. We could also think of that as, it's going to get a little muddier at times, or boomy. Whereas as we move the mic pointed this direction, we're going to get more high end. We're also going to get a little more fret noise or finger noise as we're changing chords and sliding around. But the biggest thing I think about is just trying to get a balanced sound and a sound that's going to work well for what I'm doing. I might be strumming, I might be finger picking, whatever the case, I'm going to try to play a part like that, and I'm going to move the microphone around. Right now, I have the microphone just cranked in my headphones, right? It's not the volume that I would want to record to, and it's pretty loud and pretty sensitive. But the reason why I'm doing that is because that allows me to put my headphones on now, and I'm going to move the microphone around and find the right placement that I'm looking for. Something that's a good balance that I think is going to sound good. So here's what I mean. I'm going to start out right here pointing at the 12th fret. Because this is a dynamic mic and not a condenser mic, it's not quite as sensitive. So I'm going to start out a little closer than 6 inches. Most people say start, in that 6 to 8 inch range. I'm probably at like 4 or 5 right now. We'll see how it sounds. So as you can hear, we've got a basic guitar sound there. It doesn't sound bad. It's a little muddy for me from what I'm hearing on my headphones, but so I'm gonna back it up a touch. I'm actually gonna go give myself a little more level in the headphones too. So I'm just gonna keep moving that around until I get a sound that I'm really happy with. All right, so I'm feeling pretty good about that sound. I want to move the mic around a little more and show you guys what I mean by getting things darker or just changing the tonality by moving the mic around. So right now I'm going to move it a little closer to the pointing towards the sound hole. Right here. It's getting a little boomier. Now we'll go the other direction. We'll go kind of more up the neck and see what we get. So I'm pointing at about the 9th fret now. So you can hear right away, we lose a lot of body when we go that direction. With acoustics especially, getting that kind of low and low mid range is kind of the biggest thing that I struggle with, just getting things not muddy but full sounding. All right, so now I'm going to pull up a condenser mic. You guys might have seen it on some of my other videos. It's a clone of a Neumann 47. It's a tube condenser mic, and it's multi-pattern. And so what I mean by multi-pattern is that it has different pickup patterns, and that just affects how the mic picks up the sound and from what directions the mic picks up the sound. One thing that I don't hear a lot of people talk about when they talk about patterns on microphones is it also changes the frequency response. And so when I'm finding mic placement on my acoustics, I'm also checking out different patterns to see if there's maybe one that has a slightly different EQ that might be suited better for the particular guitar or the particular tone that I'm going after. I'll demonstrate some of those to you guys here in a minute, and then also talk a little bit more about the patterns and what I'm thinking about when I'm trying to figure out the right mic pattern. All right, so now we've got this tube condenser mic set up. And right now I have it on what we call a cardioid pattern. The cardioid pattern is pretty standard. Most microphones, I would dare to say, are going to be a cardioid pattern. And SM57 is a cardioid. Most condenser mics that don't have a selectable pattern or adjustable pattern are going to be cardioid, unless they, say otherwise. This is always a good starting point for acoustic if you do happen to have a mic that has multiple patterns. All right, so I wanted to explain the mic pattern thing a little bit more. I will show you guys on this microphone here, not the one I've been using on the video, but this is a mic CM87 from Advanced Audio. And you can see right here it has a selector switch, right? You've got a circle shape and then what we call the cardioid or the figure 8 or bidirectional pattern there. So if we have our mic here and we have an omni pattern, then our omni pattern is kind of picking everywhere, right? Omni, like omnipresent. So we're kind of picking up equally all around the mic. So even if our guitar is on this side, and our guitar is coming in this direction, it's picking up sound from all around the microphone. And that just means it's going to pick up more room sound. As the guitar sounds in the room, as it's bouncing off different surfaces, all of those sounds are going to be picked up by the microphone in an omnidirectional, more so than other patterns. So again, the most common being cardioid would just be almost about half of that, right? So if our guitar is on this side and this is the front of the microphone, then a cardioid pattern is going to pick up, basically this direction. We're not going to get a lot of things picked up from the back of the microphone. So, what's back here, the things that are bouncing around the room and are bouncing off of different surfaces are not going to pick up as much with a cardioid pattern. And so maybe I'm not in the best room, or I even think about this too, as if I'm recording using my laptop and maybe there's a slight hiss from the laptop, then I'm going to make sure that I point the back of the microphone towards that, because it's not going to pick up things in this direction. So if there is something that might be a little more noisy in the room than you want, then a cardioid is a good option for that. Or if your room's not ideal, if there's a lot of reverb in there that you don't necessarily want all in your recording, then cardioid is a good solution for that as well. So lastly, we'll talk about figure eight or bidirectional, and this is kind of in between cardioid and omni, or that's how I think about it anyways. And it's essentially, I guess you could call it maybe dual cardioid. I don't know if that's a thing, but that's how I think of it, is that, whereas cardioid, we're only picking up on the front of the mic, a figure eight pattern is going to do that on the back side as well. So it's going to pick up this way and this way. So in our, noisy laptop example that I just used, we're not going to necessarily want to, if we have our laptop in front of us, we're not going to point the mic at the guitar and then, have the back pointing right at the laptop, because it's going to pick up that extra noise, that, that slight hiss or fan noise or whatever it's doing. But a figure eight pattern is great if you want to pick up a little more room noise. You want to kind of pick up the feeling of the guitar in the room a little more than, say, cardioid. How this changes the EQ of the mic with the different patterns, that changes from microphone to microphone. I have found typically that omni is brighter, cardioid is kind of the middle, say, of the frequency response, and then a figure eight is going to be darker in the top end. That's not to say that's the case with every mic, so it is important to kind of look at the frequency responses. A lot of times microphone makers, if they have a multi-pattern mic, they will post the frequency responses for each pattern, because they do vary and it changes. Again, the two biggest things I'm thinking about when I'm thinking about mic pattern are how much room it's picking up, how much of the vibe in the room do I want to pick up from that microphone, or do I need in my recording, and the frequency response of the mic. When it pertains to room sound, the biggest thing with that is, like, if it's in a big mix, if there's a lot going on and the acoustics in there, I probably don't want a lot of room sound. I probably want a little less room. I'm probably going to go for cardioid, and it's just going to get a very true to source acoustic guitar sound. Now, if I'm going for an intimate finger picking thing that's really a focal point of the track, then I might go for omni. That's going to really capture the vibe of the guitar and the vibe of the room, and just kind of make it more present and more lifelike in a way. One thing to note, and that's kind of cool about an omni pattern, is that omni patterns don't have what we call proximity effect. Typically a cardioid setting or even a figure eight setting is going to have what we call proximity effect. And we might have heard a little bit of this when we were moving the 57 around earlier. Proximity effect is essentially the idea that as a microphone gets closer to the source, that we get some low end buildup. Practically how that applies is that if I'm getting too much low end in a sound, then I'm going to try backing the microphone up. Now this goes for acoustic guitars, but even electric guitars. Pulling a 57 an inch or two or even further off a guitar amp is going to get some of your low end. It's going to remove some of that low end and take out maybe some mud if that's what you're getting from it. It can really help clear things up a lot. When we're using an omni pattern, we're not going to have a proximity effect. And that means that we can get the microphone closer to the source. If we have maybe a quieter source and we want to get a little more level, we can do that, and it's not going to affect the low end as much as it would say, a cardioid or a figure eight pattern. All right, let's take a listen. I'm just going to hit on omni, cardioid, and figure eight, and let you guys hear the differences. All right, so hopefully that was helpful. Just giving you kind of a rundown of how I set up microphones, what I'm looking for, what I'm listening for, when I'm setting them, where I'm placing them, all of that. Most of the time when I'm recording in my home studio, I'm sending these tracks to other people to mix or use on their own, projects and whatnot. So I'm generally trying to get a pretty balanced sound, a pretty true to the source sound, and let other people kind of affect that how they want to afterwards. Generally speaking, I think it's a good way, especially as you're getting started, that's a good way to go about things. Just trying to keep it simple, trying to get the best sound that you can with what gear you have, and just make some great music. As always, thanks for watching. If you haven't already, please like this video and subscribe. All right, until next time, I'll see you out there.